The guards of Ming House Village did not say much, just watched Zhao Yu and his troop drove across the gate. Back at the base, Zhao Yu get an update on the situation first on making sure everything was fine before he took out of their resources. There were still over 2 tons of food left in their inventory. With a total of 71 soldiers, and each soldier's daily ration was approximately 1 to 1.5 kilograms, so the daily consumption was about 100 kilograms of food. The remaining food reserves were enough to last the soldiers for another 20 days. In terms of technology points, the rewards from the mission together with the accumulated point in the system. Zhao Yu has a total of 77 points now. With the help of the vehicles for this mission, they completed it earlier, and there was still some time left before the next mission issued from the system. Zhao Yu thought it over about the resources gathering. Soon, he decided to further split the group to take turns going out to search for supplies. The Special Forces, Tiger, were not dispatched and were responsible for guarding his safety, while the other 50 soldiers were perfectly divided into 2 groups of 25. The base's electricity had not been fully restored. Zhao Yu has to leave the 8 off-road vehicles aside, as they had turned into useless hulks of metal for the time being. We need to restore the photovoltaic power plant's power supply capabilities as soon as possible. Zhao Yu went to the equipment room of the photovoltaic power plant. Although he had the blueprints and guidance was given by the electrician from the previous fallout shelter, he ultimately gave up after several attempts to understand it. The good news, he was able to unlock the combat engineers now. With 77 technology points at hand, Zhao Yu immediately spent 27 points to train 9 special forces. Among them were 3 Fierce Tiger, 3 Cheetah, and 3 Dragon. Zhao Yu was shocked to find that Cheetah was women. After a brief surprise, Zhao Yu didn't think much of it and directly formed a squad with the 10 special forces as his personal guards. At this point, he had a total of 80 soldiers under his command, divided into 3 squads. One was the guard squad with 20 soldiers responsible for guarding the base. One was the personal guard squad, composed of 10 special forces responsible for Zhao Yu's personal security. The other was the combat squad, made up of 10 land infantry and 40 soldiers. Finally, the combat engineer soldier type was successfully unlocked and the exchange price was as expected, requiring 4 technology points. This meant that as time went on, the soldier types became more expensive. Without hesitation, he spent 4 technology points to train a combat engineer. During the wait, he found that these engineers were indeed powerful and worth the 4 technology points. They could handle all matters related to engineering. For instance, with issues like the power generation of the photovoltaic power plant, the engineers could manage it. Other tasks such as bridge building, factory construction, maintenance, etc., there was nothing they couldn't do. They were knowledgeable in construction. The only drawback might be that the engineers were not strong in combat, other than above-average body status. They have almost no combat-related skills with them. However, this was not important. Zhao Yu would not possibly send these precious assets to participate in battles. Engineer 001, concerning this photovoltaic power plant, how long will it take to restore power supply? Reporting to the commander, give me 3 hours, and 1 guarantee the task will be completed. Good, go do it. Zhao Yu specifically reassigned half of his personal guards to protect the engineer soldier. As his biological clock struck, Zhao Yu also returned to the base to sleep. This time, he slept well as knowing 81 soldiers under his command and plenty of firearms, ammunition, and food to secure his safety. By the time he woke up, the power plant was likely to have restored and the teams sent out to scout for supplies brought back a large amount of resources. This time, Zhao Yu would be able to manufacture more vehicles. Boss, the plan has failed. Which plan? Steward Bai leaned back in his lounge chair, unzipping his trousers, giving a signal. Zhou Shi quickly tying up her long hair, unbuttoning the tightly secured buttons at her chest, then slowly knelt down, playfully reaching out with her hand and said, "The plan with the helicopter crash?" Snap. Steward Bai stood up abruptly, no longer in the mood for play. What happened? The people around used it, but the mutated zombies have been eliminated completely? Huh. Steward Bai frowned. The defense force of the school was that strong? One don't know. 300 to 400 people died. Only a few dozen left? Steward Bai immediately felt deflated and sat back down in his chair, Arrange one more experiment at another place? Boss, if two helicopters crash in a short period of time, won't that raise suspicion? She wiped the corner of her mouth as she spoke. Just take a few vials of the elixir, send them somewhere else. As for the investigation, we can mention it was lost from the crashed helicopter. After all, that helicopter carried quite a lot of genetic elixirs, and it was possible that someone had secretly taken them. Joshi was about to leave to arrange it. Wait, what was the most valuable thing on the crashed helicopter? Steward Bai asked. 3 vials of premium third-tier strength enhancement elixirs, ordered by a seller from Black Rock City. Good. Then take 3 vials of the premium third-tier strength genetic elixirs and drop them in a suitable area. Premium third-tier strength genetic elixir, isn't this a bit? Joshi was surprised. Those 3 were not cheap. A first tier is too weak. Even a numbers of ordinary people could dealt with it. With a third tier, the mutation should be able to spread. The success rate of the premium quality is not low. What if all of them succeed? Such luck doesn't exist. The premium quality has only a 10% success rate. I don't believe all 3 enhancements can succeed. Steward Bai said indifferently. Their group had been selling genetic elixirs for many years and naturally figured out how to increase the success rate. Regardless of the grade, genetic elixirs are categorized from low to high quality as inferior, normal, premium, and perfect. Each increase in quality comes with multiplication in price by many times, which ordinary people cannot afford. Also, choose a gathering place that could make good spread of them. Understood. I'll arrange it right away. Zhao Yu found out that the photovoltaic power generation equipment had been activated, and the team that went out to collect supplies had already charged 8 off-road vehicles in advance. They also went out for several trips and brought back quite a lot of resources with the vehicles. In particular, the rubber was brought back in quantities enough to manufacture dozens of cars. Zhao Yu quickly went to the tank factory and successfully unlocked the option to manufacture armored vehicles. When he excitedly clicked on the armored vehicle option, he realized that the materials needed for manufacturing these were vast, and that each vehicle was a gold-guzzling beast. With the lightest armored vehicle requiring over 10 tons of materials, and that was just for one vehicle. Among them, the heaviest model of the armored vehicle weighed a staggering 55 tons, its body clad in thick armor. King of the land was no overstatement. There were many types of armored vehicles, including wheeled armored cars and tracked vehicles, the latter more fittingly called tanks. In terms of weaponry, there were machine cannons of various calibers, light and heavy machine guns with different rates of fire, and even muzzles capable of launching grenades. Zhao Yu flipped through the options and was almost drooling. These were all genuine tanks. Although the required materials were numerous, he figured he could assemble one. Before Zhao Yu clicked on the assemble option, he realized something. All of them are oil-fueled. He found that regardless of the type of tank, all were diesel-powered. Not a single one was electric. Tanks, often weighing tens of tons, couldn't possibly be powered by electricity unless there was a more advanced power system available. For the current stage, the optimal system was diesel fuel.
N11.
It had been hard enough to be able to produce tanks. It is even harder to get diesel fuel now. According to the description, each of these tanks was a major oil guzzler, consuming hundreds of liters of fuel per 100 kilometers, which was tens to hundreds of times more than a regular car. If he wanted to deploy tanks, he would also need to produce a military fuel tanker to follow them around for refueling. With no option, Zhao Yu only produced a few more rechargeable off-road vehicles and mounted various machine guns on their roofs. These off-road vehicles were all standard military types and were not bulletproof, weighing only about 1 to 2 tons. There were also military off-road vehicles with bulletproof capabilities, but naturally, they would change from rechargeable battery to fuel-powered. Without fuel, Zhao Yu could only opt for electric cars for the time being. Zhao Yu went back to the main base building and opened the system interface to check about today's daily tasks. Daily mission: destroy the 3 vials of high-quality Tier 3 genetic elixirs that are exiled outside. Zhao Yu was startled for a moment, as today's mission was different from usual. He was actually asked to destroy 3 vials of genetic elixirs. Not fighting zombies, not fighting alien species anymore. This was the first time Zhao Yu had encountered such a mission, and he felt a sense of novelty. However, When he saw the location, he became nervous. The map refreshed for the mission was far from the base, even farther than the school. Zhao Yu calculated whether the off-road vehicles could return on a full charge. What relieved him was that the off-road vehicles could make a round trip on a full charge. It seems that the system is planning the range of tasks according to my operational capabilities. If I manage to get a tank, will it make me go destroy a city? Zhao Yu wished that the system would continue to requested him on killing a few alien species as a complete task, as it had before. Zhao Yu began to prepare. Glancing at his tech points, which had naturally grown, he had reached 54 points. Considering the round-trip time, one could use 6 or 7 tech points. Zhao Yu preferred build the power station first, and then develop the remaining to mine, resource recycling furnace, and chemical plant. Although these buildings didn't seem to make a significant improvement in the short term, only allowing the production of ammunition, in the long run, the mining plant would actively collect resources useful for the base. The resource recycling furnace could break down and store various types of resources, and many high-tech products required the artificial chemical elements produced by the chemical plant. These 3 buildings were the stepping stone for the long-term development of Zhao Yu's base. Zhao Yu directly trained 10 more soldiers. This expanded his soldier count to 91. As usual, he left 20 members of the guard team to stay at the base with an additional engineer, whom Zhao Yu ordered him to stay inside the base. The remaining 70 were all brought along. A total of 15 off-road vehicles were produced, each equipped with a machine gun on the roof. In fact, 70 people only needed 10 vehicles, but Zhao Yu thought if he saw some resources along the way, he could also collect them. When Zhao Yu led the 15 off-road vehicles past the East Gate, Eagle and others who were watching from a distance were shocked. 15 vehicles, each nearly full of people. Is this his own army or reinforcement formed the Rizhao? With Zhao Yu's reinforcements growing increasingly numerous, it would be difficult for them to have an equal conversation as they had before. Judging by the time, Lord Ming and the others should be almost arrived at. Black Stone City. Everyone, hang in there. We're about to reach Black Rock City. We should be able to get a good sleep tonight. Meng Xian and everyone's face was covered in dust and exhaustion. The group has traveled over 100 kilometers, endured the hardship of living in the wilderness for weeks, and finally arrived near Black Rock City. Sister Ming, I have something to tell you. Xiaolu wanted to speak with Meng Xian in personal. Meng Xian seemed to sense something and signaled for the others to go ahead. With everyone else left, Xiaolu started to express his true feeling towards Meng Xian. Sister Ming, I like you. I know. You know you have asked me before. Yes. One still remembered it, Sister Ming. To be your partner, one must be stronger than you. At that time, one resolutely decided to become an enhancer like you. One decided not only become a dual attribute enhancer like you, but a tri-attribute enhancer. When I actually used the agility genetic elixir myself, I realized how amazing it is that you could endure the pain that comes with dual attribute enhancement. I thought I am done. Fortunately, one survived it. It was a nightmare, a dream that I dare not try lightly again. Since then, one have not dared to express my love for you. One know I'm not worthy. One don't even dare to try strength enhancement. Xiaolu kept his head down as he really felt embarrassed about it. Meng Xian listened to Xiaolu patiently. She had seen too many companions die of the genetic elixir. Everyone though they could see each other very soon, but she was the only one alive in the end. After such a long period of recuperation, one have finally gathered my courage again. Second-tier enhancement has a high mortality rate. I'm worried if one don't say these words now, I might. Sister Ming, thank you. If it hadn't been for you, I might have died long ago. A smile appeared on Xiaolu's face. He never thought that the light of hope in this post-apocalyptic world was his love for a woman. Sister Ming, if I succeed this time, could you give me a chance? I've said it before, to be my man, at the very least, you have to be stronger than me. Do you think you can be stronger than me with your second tier? Meng Xian laughed. From the beginning, Xiaolu knew he would get rejected. At this moment, Meng Xian asked another question. Are you only satisfied with being second-tier enhancer? Do you mean? Xiaolu raised his head and looked at her with hope in his eyes. Throughout my journey, I've met many people. There were those who stirred my heart, and those with ability far superior. I once had someone whom I mutually liked. We agreed to live together. Sadly, when I believed that we would be together forever, he did not made it. If you can become a third-tier enhancer, and one have not yet become a fourth-tier enhancer, maybe we could try it out. Really? Sister Ming, if I reach third tier, would you really be with me? Don't be too happy yet. The last thing 1 a.m. going to mention to you is, if I fall in love with someone else before you reach third tier. Too bad for you. She knew that she didn't like Xiao Lu, but she wanted him to stay alive. Xiao Lu didn't think too much about it. His mind was filled with the thought of becoming third tier and be together with her. Sister Ming, I will definitely survive. Let's go. Ming Xian patted his shoulder and started walking forward. The reason for her not to accept Xiao Lu easily was because she also wanted to find a man she could rely on as a woman, not someone who rely on her. But unfortunately, it seemed impossible to meet such a person now. The two of them didn't walk for long before they caught up with the group. The team stopped at the edge of a field. In the distance, the dense tents and the crowd moving back and forth brought tears to everyone's eyes. We're finally here. Ming Xian recalled the first time she came to Black Rock City, and she felt that it was an event long time ago. Among the group, most of them were visiting Black Rock City for their first time. Excitement could be seen from their expression. What you see ahead is not the real Black Rock City. The real city is the one behind that, protected by city walls. Ming Xian smiled and introduced to the group members. These tents are built for those who can't afford the city entry fee or buying any property in the city. So many? Someone exclaimed. Just in their field of view, there were at least 8,000 to 10,000 people. This is just the east region of Black Rock City. There are 4 gates and regions in total, and each one has a large number of tents outside. All of you could see it by yourself. Let's go. Ming Xian led the way, guiding the crowd towards it. As they approached the tents, they realized that despite the apparent chaos outside the city, there was an orderly system in place. Moreover, all the tents were neatly arranged, obviously deliberately planned. Especially in the center, there was a main road with 30 meters wide. This main road is often used by the people from the city, so tents are not allowed to be set up here. While she was explaining, the crowd suddenly scattered in disarray, quickly clearing a path. On the road, 4 or 5 cars roared past. Meng Xian quickly led everyone to dodge to the side. SUVs. In the post-apocalyptic world, those who could still drive were invariably hold some social status. Although the 5 SUVs were battered and didn't even have a shelter to shield against the wind and rain, the longing looks from the crowd were nonetheless apparent. We will definitely be able to get such cars too. Meng Xian quickly cheered them on. In fact, cars were still relatively common. In some of the larger automotive cities, there were many intact vehicles. In the post-apocalyptic world, what was truly lack of was gasoline. At the abandoned fuel stations, they could still find some leftover gasoline. But once these ownerless resources were exhausted, gasoline could only be obtained from the major city. The price of fuel was a number so high that ordinary people didn't even dare to think about it. Whoever owned the gasoline or cars holds the symbol of status and power. Most of the people nearby were accustomed to this sight. Only outsiders like Meng Xian and her companions showed looks of envy. Is this your first time here? At that moment, a sleazy-looking middle-aged man with his hair combed back using some kind of gel approached them. There's an entry fee for the city. You newcomers can stay outside the city. One just happen to have some tents you can rent? No need. One know the boss of the 7-ring snake. Meng Xian interrupted him. 7th ring snake? The sleazy man quickly backed off from them. This phenomenon caused the rest of the group members wondered what was the 7th ring snake. Xiao Lu too asked quietly, Sister Ming, what is this 7th ring snake? Black Rock City is very large, with 6 main roads constructed inside, and each main road was named as 1 ring. In the old days would be up to the 6th ring. The 7th ring refers to these camps outside the city. Of course, people inside the city don't recognize the 7th ring, but those who lived outside recognized it as the 7th ring. The 7th ring snake is an organization outside the east gate of Black Rock City, in charge of 8 camps. Meng Xian pointed to the campsites on both sides of the road and continued, Do you all see these square mark? Each square represents 1 camp, and these camps are managed by the factions. There are about 30 to 40 camps, and there are more than a dozen to 20 different factions of all sizes. The seventh ring snake is one of them. Xiao Lu scratched his head and asked, Sister Ming, aren't we going into the city? With these things, we probably can't even afford the city entry fee. We will deal in the seventh ring. Ming Xian laughed and pointed to the goods they were pulling behind them. After her introduction, everyone understood that every time they came here to trade, they didn't really go in Black Rock City. Instead, they traded in the seventh ring outside the Black Rock City. There were many trading centers and markets here. This is because some of the traders from the city came to seventh ring for trading for the purpose on avoiding taxes. So they dealt with it here in advance. There were also other dealers from other gates who brought their goods here to deal with it. Didn't we stay in the city last time? Xiao Lu was a bit confused. He wasn't very familiar with Black Rock City. The previous times he had come, it was all handled by Ming Xian, who directly took them into the city. We used the exclusive privilege passage of the Reed Group last time. Only those who signed up to use the genetic elixir could enjoy it. This time, I'll stay outside for the night. All? Sister Ming, one thought you were going to inquire about Zhao Yu's news with that manager Huang. Xiao Lu asked. I have other ways to get in, but one have to wait until tomorrow. You two go ahead for today. What about the rest of the group? We'll just stay outside. The rent for these tents isn't expensive, and we still have some acquaintances. Only then did Xiao Lu remember Meng Xian mentioning she knew the boss of the seventh ring snake. All right. After more than 2 hours of trekking, Zhao Yu finally led the troop to the vicinity of their destination. From a distance, he could see a camp constructed out of wood. Stop the cars. At a safe distance, Zhao Yu took out an 8x scope to watch from afar. In the camp, several watchers from the defend towers had spotted Zhao Yu and his troop as well. The arrival of Zhao Yu and his team had caused no small amount of disturbance in the camp. Boss, this is bad. An army has stopped outside our gates. Someone just ran into a camp for reporting. An army? The leader of the camp with a shiny bald head and a face covered with few horizontal scars was worried and quickly brought his men to the gate. From the top of the watchtower, the leader could see that about 10 to 15 off-road vehicles were stopped on an open ground 2 to 300 meters away from their camp. Boss, could it be because of the genetic elixir? A nervous military advisor spoke up. Although the army was still far away from their city, it was still visible that the people in the cars were wearing military uniforms. How could it be so soon? The baldly boss was frightened by the arrival of an unknown troop. They had been discussed about the lost genetic elixir of the helicopter crash that all assets belonging to the Reed Group. So soon, a team appeared outside their stronghold. What about the person from the school? He's still locked up in the prison. Send someone over to find out what they're here for. Reluctant to just hand over the collected goods, the boss planned to negotiate with Zhao Yu. Yes. Soon, under the advisor's orders, a skinny subordinate, trembling with fear, and walked towards Zhao Yu. Don't shoot. I come in peace. Zhao Yu instructed his men not to fire. When the man approached, Zhao Yu leaned on the car window and asked, What place is this? This is Black Wind Stronghold. Normal resident lives here. How many people are living in the stronghold? And do you have any army or weapon? There are over 500 people in the stronghold, and more than 100 guns stand by for anyone. The skinny man didn't forget the purpose of his mission and cautiously asked, Sir, may first ask why you have come to our Black Wind Stronghold? On his way here, Zhao Yu had also thought about the situation of this mission. He speculated that it was very likely due to the helicopter crash earlier, someone secretly keeping the genetic elixir here. The mission was to destroy 3 vials of genetic elixir, which meant that someone must have brought them here. So, he decided not to beat around the bush and directly deal with the messenger. I am a centurion of the Reed Group. One of our helicopters transporting genetic elixirs crashed, and some of the elixirs were lost. According to our investigation, someone brought it here. All. The skinny man was startled and quickly claimed ignorance. Zhao Yu didn't think he could get anything out of this small fry. Who is your leader? What's his name? Our chief is Li Dezhuang. All right, go back and tell your chief to hand over those 3 elixirs. Yes, I will report back immediately, the skinny man nodded repeatedly. What's happening? As soon as the skinny man returned, The baldly boss requested him to explain the situation. Boss, bad news, they're from the Reed Group. What? Although he had a premonition, Li Dezhuang was still shocked to hear that the army was from the Reed Group. What do we do now? The advisor quickly asked. What did they say? The skinny man recounted the entire conversation between the two. 3 genetic elixirs. They even know the number. We're doomed. The baldly boss felt a pang of heartache. He had just obtained them and hadn't even figured out how to maximize their benefits before the real owners showed up. However, the advisor has an idea to execute. Big brother, could they be bluffing us? Li Dezhuang calmed down and think about it. The guy from the school said that he hid the 3 genetic elixirs in advance, and others didn't know about it. After the school business was done, he came here alone to trade with us. This means that the school might not be aware of his deeds. According to his understanding, they practiced a public ownership system where all valuables were turned in, calculated for credits, and then distributed among the contributors. Therefore, it was not a problem for that man to hide the items in advance and sell them privately here, which reflected human selfishness. The only issue was that he didn't expect that the leader of Black Wind Stronghold would think of cheating him. But considering he came from the school, this naivety was somewhat understandable. So, you mean, we just deny having it? Exactly. The advisor nodded. We firmly deny owning it. What can they do? Li Dezhuang nodded. Let's do that. Go back again and tell them we don't know anything about any genetic elixirs. Soon, the skinny man relayed Li Dezhuang's message to Zhao Yu. The mission instructions were clear about the location of the 3 genetic elixirs. They are right inside this stronghold now. The genetic elixirs have our group's trackers on them, and they were inside your stronghold. Go back and tell your boss that if you hand them over now, nothing will happen. If he wants to fight against the Reed Group, the consequence of it will be that the Black Wind Stronghold will be buried along with him. The skinny man was terrified and ran back to the stronghold to convey Zhao Yu's message. It's over. Li Dezhuang was alarmed and instinctively wanted to hand over the 3 genetic elixirs. However, the advisor quickly interrupted him. Boss, we can't hand them over. These elixirs belong to premium quality. With them, both of us could become the residents of Black Stone City. What else can we do if we don't hand them over? If they attack, who can stop them? Li Dezhuang retorted angrily. Boss, my idea is that there aren't many of them right now, just over 100 people. If we eliminate them, it will take time for the Reed Group to react. During this time, it's enough for both of us to flee to Black Stone City. We can trade in the black market, and will be legitimate pay to become the residents of Black Stone City. By that time, even the Reed Group won't be able to touch us. Will the Reed Group will just let us go? Who says we are from Black Wind Stronghold? Once we get there, we can just make up any identity. These country bumpkins will never get a chance to enter Black Stone City. Who will recognize us there? That makes sense. Are you sure the 3 elixirs are enough for us to become the residents of Black Stone City? I'm sure. What if I bring my wife along? Then it might not be enough. Big brother, she's just a woman. We can always snatch another one later. Besides, once we become the residents of Black Stone City, there will be plenty of women outside the city wanting to throw themselves at us. Li Dezhuang finally made up his mind. Go tell that centurion that we really haven't seen any genetic elixirs. Maybe there's a problem with their tracker. All. With that, the skinny man was unwillingly left the stronghold. Meanwhile, Li Dezhuang also ordered everyone to gather and prepare for battle. On the other side, after learning the attitude of stronghold leader Li Dezhuang from the skinny man, Zhao Yu also made up his mind. It looks like we're going to have a siege battle. He could clearly saw that many people in the stronghold had already started equipped with weapons and ammunition, seemingly ready to fight to the end. Although he didn't know what the other leader was thinking, if they wanted to fight, then let's begin. Dada! A burst of gunfire rang out from the stronghold. Subsequently, the 2 front off-road vehicles were riddled with bullets. Retreat! Zhao Yu quickly shouted. The entire troop rapidly retreated, backing up over 100 meters to a gentle slope to avoid the enemy's line of fire. 5 were injured, but no one was dead. Damn it, one haven't even started, and they've already opened fire. Zhao Yu hadn't expected the people in the stronghold to be so bold. Even after he mentioned he was from the Reed group, they still dared to fire. This taught him a lesson. In the wilderness, everywhere there are mobs. Zhao Yu took out a bioscope and observed the stronghold again. He noticed that the outer walls of the stronghold were made from trees on the spot. There were some gaps between the wood, through which the people inside the stronghold were sticking out their guns. As the stronghold built against the mountain in the distance, Zhao Yu pointed out a few soldiers and instructed them to look around for other possible routes into the stronghold. He called over a special forces dragon and asked, "At this distance, can you take down those 2 men?" Inside the gate of the stronghold, 2 gunmen were positioned high on 2 towers, aiming down at them, continuously firing. Bullets occasionally exploded near their hiding spot. Report, the distance is too far. If one had a sniper rifle, it would be possible. A sniper rifle. The base's armory could exchange for sniper rifles, but he had never considered this and had never exchanged for one battle against human. However, the multi-zoom scopes used for sniper rifles were something he had acquired in abundance, using them as binoculars on a daily basis. Zhao Yu lifted the scope in his hand and asked, "Would adding a scope to a rifle work?" "Report, sir. The barrels of our rifles are too short." Zhao Yu understood that rifles could be used as sniper rifles, but only certain rifles, like the Mauser 98K, M1903, etc. These weapons were used as rifles without scopes and as sniper rifles with scopes. But correspondingly, being versatile also meant they were not specialized, lacking in power, accuracy, and stability. The rifles used by his soldiers were specialized rifles, not designed for the use as sniper rifles. At the tightly closed gates of the distant stronghold, he's still able to hear bursts of mocking laughter. If we had artillery, it might be easier. Zhao Yu had never thought that one day he would be waging war against human. All types of troops and weapons were prepared for dealing with mutants, zombies, and monsters. This made him resolutely decide to acquire a variety of weapons in the future. The most powerful weapon he currently had was a machine gun, but it seemed ineffective against the thick wooden walls. Several soldiers who went out to scout returned, bearing bad news for Zhao Yu. The stronghold was surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, making it easy to defend but hard to attack. To get in, they could only go through the front. It seems there will be some sacrifices. After thinking about it, the only way Zhao Yu could think of was to abandon some soldiers and a few off-road vehicles and charge in directly. Zhao Yu did not hesitate and quickly ordered the 6 soldiers to drive the off-road vehicles to the front side by side, while the others followed behind the 5 vehicles. Advance. Under Zhao Yu's command, they bent down and hid their heads in the passenger seat to prevent their heads from exploding prematurely. Soon, the 6 vehicles began to charge forward. Correspondingly, the stronghold also began to attack fiercely. With a series of crackling sounds, the windows of the 6 SUVs had long shattered on the ground, and everything in the cars had been smashed into pieces. The few soldiers in the driver's seat were also shot several times in the rain of bullets. Fortunately, they blocked the gun in front of their heads, which meant that the chips in their heads were not blown up, so they could continue to carry out orders. Number 1. Step on the accelerator and rush in. Zhao Yu stayed in the crowd and listened to the gunshots, especially the soldiers on the outer perimeter. They were shot continuously. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't feel pain, they would have screamed long ago. Suddenly, an off-road vehicle at the side sped up and rushed toward the village. At the same time, the gunshots coming from the direction of the stockade became more and more intense. The soldier in the number 1 car was riddled with holes, but he carried out Zhao Yu's orders meticulously and successfully knocked down the stockade gate before his head was blown up. Zhao Yu instantly felt the pressure around him. Speed up, charge. The 5 cars in front of him accelerated at the same time. He was feeling a little regretful now. If he had known earlier, he would have stayed at the back. Now that there was no way out, he could only charge in. He didn't know what was happening in front of him, nor did he dare to look up. However, he had already given the order to the soldiers to kill all the enemies. Bang! 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 After a few consecutive collisions, all 5 SUVs crashed into the fence wall of the stockade. Zhao Yu leaned tightly against the back of the vehicle and commanded, "Charge! Storm in!" As the soldiers rushed into the camp, The pressure on Zhao Yu eased immediately. No one was shooting at him anymore. This allowed him to hide in somewhere safer. Instead of raising his head to observe the situation, he pulled out a mirror and used its reflection to catch a glimpse of the situation inside the camp. Sparks flew everywhere, with people constantly falling. The scene was more chaotic than he had imagined. Fierce Tiger, take the machine gun from the vehicle and go in to support fire. Zhao Yu directly ordered 4 Special Forces soldiers, Fierce Tiger, to take the machine gun and suppress the enemy fire. Zhao Yu also started to doubt his command abilities. Perhaps a professional would have done it more methodically. Maybe in the nighttime? Zhao Yu remembered he was just an ordinary person with no experience in warfare. With this experience, he hoped things would be better next time. If there was a next time, he resolved to pave the way with firepower, arranging everything from mortars to rocket launchers, and definitely not taking personal risks at the front line. Crazy. They are all madmen. Inside the camp, Li Dezhuang hid behind a barricade, watching soldiers constantly storming the entrance. He witnessed several soldiers get shot multiple times, seemingly unfazed by the pain and relentlessly returning fire. What infuriated him even more was that his men, upon being shot, would lose their fighting capability and lie on the ground, wailing in pain. But their opponents continued to attack relentlessly, even if they were injured. In just a few dozen seconds, 70 to 80 of his men had fallen, while only about a dozen of the enemy lay completely still on the ground. No matter how many bullets they took, they continued to resist stubbornly, and every shot they fired was extremely accurate. Damn it, these people are abnormal. They must be on drugs. By now, Li Dezhuang understood that the opposing soldiers were not ordinary. Each of them fought fearlessly. Boss, we can't hold on. Let's run. After observing the situation, the military advisor concluded that though they had more men, they were bound to lose in the end. Retreat. Li Dezhuang hastily withdrew under the cover of his trusted aides. With the boss retreating, others lost their will to resist. Many dropped their weapons and surrendered. Zhao Yu immediately ordered, "Spare those who surrender." Zhao Yu understood the basic tactic. If you kill even those who surrender, wouldn't you be forcing people into a desperate fight? As expected, following this command, more and more people couldn't hold on and immediately threw down their weapons to surrender. The sound of gunfire inside the stronghold gradually ceased. Once he was certain his soldiers had control of the situation, Zhao Yu finally made an appearance. The first sight that met his eyes were bodies lying haphazardly everywhere. More were the injured and lying on the ground. In contrast, his soldiers were unscathed. Most had suffered injuries, but each one was still meticulously carrying out their duties. Zhao Yu didn't dare to venture too deep, fearing an ambush. He approached the number 1 off-road vehicle and called over an uninjured person for questioning. After some interrogation, Zhao Yu learned that there weren't many real gunmen in the stronghold. Only about 100, and most of them had only been given guns that day. The actual combatants numbered only in the 30s. Those who had received guns today usually worked as laborers in a mine near the stronghold. There was a mine? Yes, an iron mine. We survive by trading or with other forces for food. Zhao Yu realized then that the stronghold could sustain 300 to 400 people because they had an iron mine to trade with others. Zhao Yu learned that the boss of the stronghold had already fled. He thought for a moment and then ordered the captives to be tied up. Next, he checked on the condition of his own soldiers. He had brought 70 men on this campaign, 11 of whom were dead, and most of the rest were injured. The only few who were uninjured were the Cheetah Special Forces soldiers responsible for protecting him. Zhao Yu immediately had people start bandaging wounds, taking care of his own men first and then the injured prisoners. After all this, Zhao Yu led his men deeper into the stronghold. It took some effort to finally get a clear picture of the situation in the stronghold. The stronghold's master, Li Dezhuang, had escaped with his confidants, about 7 or 8 people in total, by using ropes to descend from the back of the stronghold. The rest were either residents or slaves, all gathered by Zhao Yu near the large open space at the stronghold's gate. Standing before Zhao Yu were over 300 people, all of them with gaunt faces and bony bodies, their eyes devoid of life. It was evident that their daily life under Li Dezhuang was harsh. Besides these ragged people, there were also more than 20 clean and neat women, each graceful in their own way. Commander, all these women were Li Dezhuang's. So many. The stronghold's master knew how to live a good life for having more than 20 women. Not just his, they all shared these women. The speaker was a rather smart young man named Hu Bo. Seizing the opportunity, he not only surrendered first, but also was the first to reveal the situation in the stronghold. He voluntarily led Zhao Yu's men to round up the remaining people here for questioning. Zhao Yu was astonished. He hadn't expected that, just a few years into this apocalyptic world, slavery would re-emerge in these places. According to Hu Bo, these people were all slaves of Li Dezhuang. After all, they came from a modern society. How could they just accept being enslaved? Those who resisted are all dead. Li Dezhuang used to take pleasure in torturing people, and he liked to make everyone watch. Seeing it so often, hearing the screams, nobody dared to resist anymore. Zhao Yu didn't linger on this topic and directly asked Hu Bo about the genetic elixir. Hu Bo thought for a moment and said, when Li Dezhuang escaped, he carried a box with him, about this size. I don't know if what you're looking for is in that box. Although not one of Li Dezhuang's confidants, he was not far from Li Dezhuang and his men during the battle. He was also the first to see Li Dezhuang and others escaping and thus surrendered first. It's taken away. Zhao Yu glanced at the mission panel, which indicated the mission was still incomplete. It seemed that this mission was quite complicated. It wasn't enough to just break into the stronghold. He also needed to chase after Li Dezhuang and his men. But where would these people go? Zhao Yu found himself in a dilemma. Hu Bo, who had been observing Zhao Yu's expressions, quickly stated, Commander, don't you know where Li Dezhuang has gone? Do you know? Zhao Yu turned to glance at him. I don't know, Hu Bo hurriedly said, but that woman knows. Following the direction of his finger, Zhao Yu looked over. Among those 20-odd women, one was surrounded by the others. She was a naturally seductive woman, every movement filled with allure, particularly eye-catching. Especially when she saw Zhao Yu looking over, she turned away as she was shy about it. She is the stronghold's lady. Li Dezhuang's women have all been shared with his men, but this woman, only she was special. Right. Zhao Yu nodded and walked over. The group of women became agitated. Many instinctively stepped back, not daring to look at Zhao Yu and his men. Only the stronghold's lady, instead of retreating, stepped forward. Gentlemen, has our stronghold changed its master? What about changing the master? I want to be the lady of the stronghold, no matter who it is. The woman smiled, a rare hint of melancholy in her eyes, but it quickly disappeared. Zhao Yu didn't care about her inner thoughts and directly asked, I'm asking you, where is Li Dezhuang most likely to have run off to? Black Stone City. The stronghold's lady said without hesitation. He has been there many times. Each time he returned, he was always thinking about it that he wanted to become a resident of Black Stone City. This stronghold seems fine. Why would he want to run to Black Stone City to be a resident? The mine is empty. If he doesn't run, he won't be able to support so many people. When the slaves have nothing to eat, what else can they do but revolt? Empty. It was all for nothing. The mine was empty. Yes, empty. The stronghold's lady smiled. If you search this stronghold, there's not much of value left. Every time he went to Black Stone City to trade, he stored most of the money there. I knew he wanted to run, but one didn't expect he wouldn't take me with him. Zhao Yu didn't have time for her ramblings. He turned to Hu Bo, asking if he knew the route from the back of the stronghold to Black Stone City. I know. I've been with the teams transporting iron, or to Black Stone City several times. Zhao Yu immediately dispatched 20 men, and had Hu Bo lead them to chase after Li Dezhuang. He asked the stronghold's lady where all the supplies were. After getting a positive response, he sent people to take inventory of the supplies. There was a lot of food, more than 20 tons, over 100 various firearms, and plenty of ammunition, around 40 to 50,000. There were 9 intact vehicles left. The other 5 were barely usable but could break down at any time. Zhao Yu ordered his people to take away over 30,000 rounds of ammunition, leaving 10,000 behind. Due to limited transportation capacity, only a small portion of the food, about 2 or 3 tons, could be taken. The rest was left for the people of the stronghold. Zhao Yu received a mission completion notification in his mind. This has indicating that Hu Bo had successfully caught up with Li Dezhuang. About 10 minutes later, the tracking team returned. 3 soldiers had died, but the enemy was completely annihilated. Commander, look what I've brought back. Hu Bo quietly found Zhao Yu and handed him a card. Zhao Yu saw it was a bank card, similar to pre-apocalyptic ones but obviously newly made, with logos and bank names related to Blackstone City. This is Li Dezhuang's bank card from Blackstone City. There must be quite a bit of money in it. Zhao Yu pocketed the bank card and nodded in approval. Well done. Hu Bo wanted to skim off the top, but he didn't dare, especially with 20 soldiers accompanying him. Commander, are you leaving? Hu Bo noticed 2 vehicles loaded with food and ammunition and asked.
Yes.
What about our stronghold? Zhao Yu turned and looked at the remaining 300 people like cattle and sheep and awaiting their slaughter. What are your thoughts? Hu Bo scratched his head. If one could follow you, Commander.
Impossible.
What use would he have for these people? They were less loyal than his soldiers and would require money and effort to maintain. Hu Bo realized his wishful thinking. Zhao Yu was a soldier of the Reed Group, with a completed mission and ready to return. I plan to rebuild this place into a harmonious survivor settlement. I haven't been here long, previously lived in another survivor settlement where everyone got along well. Fine, handle it yourself. Zhao Yu didn't want to linger. Just as he was about to leave, the stronghold's lady hastily blocked his way. Commander, take me with you. Tears streaked her face, a pitiful look on her face. If you just leave like this, I might get lost. Had she not been a woman, Zhao Yu might have killed her. She had lived comfortably with Li Dezhuang, exploiting others, and now she had to face the consequences. As for whether the others would forgive her, he didn't care. That was their own business. Indeed, as Zhao Yu was about to leave, he heard some lively characters discussing how to deal with these women. They all enjoyed luxury with Li Dezhuang. They should be killed. It'd be a waste to kill them. We can reform them. They might become our good sisters. Right, let's do as Brother Bo says. Let's become a harmonious and friendly tribe. Clearly, Hu Bo had ambition but lacked the strength to be a dictator. So he had to find a way to create a communal pot, positioning himself as the one who distributed the food. The voices gradually faded with the wind as Zhao Yu led his army out the base. They had set out with 71 people, but only 57 returned. 14 soldiers were left behind. Zhao Yu couldn't take them all back this time. Before leaving, he arranged for Hu Bo to throw the bodies of these men and the strongholds dead outside, letting nature reclaim them. This expedition had been very beneficial for Zhao Yu, especially in terms of leading troops and warfare. He felt the need for more types of soldiers and weapons. Once I get back, I should organize various types of troops. Facing a situation like this again might be easier. Black Rock City. New calendar year 5, March 4th, 7 a.m. As the bell in the city rang, the tall city gates slowly opened. A large crowd had already gathered, eager to enter the city. Back off, back off. The city guards were wielding guns, kept shouting and pushing the chaotic crowd back a few meters. After much effort, they managed to get the people entering the city to form a long queue. Those who want to enter the city, come here to exchange for black stone currency first. The entry fee is 100. At the city gate, several people dressed in black stone city uniforms had already started their shift, setting up a table with a list of exchange rates. It detailed the prices for exchanging various kinds of supplies for black stone currency. However, few people would exchange here due to the high rates. Only a few uninformed outsiders would do so. Most people entering the city had already exchanged black stone currency in various camps outside the city. Meng Xian was currently in the queue to enter the city. She followed the line for nearly half an hour before it was finally her turn. After paying 100 black stone currency, she was informed she could only stay in the city for 1 day. Beauty, want to buy a house? Beauty, interested in Blackstone City residency? Just a few steps in, several agents approached her and inquiring about her needs. Meng Xian dismissed these people one by one and headed towards the Reed Group's base. The Reed Group's base was a large and significant area in the city, with a magnificent building bustling with people coming and going. Hello, my name is Meng Xian. I'm here to see Manager Huang. Looking for Manager Huang? A staff member was sizing up Meng Xian. Seeing her attractiveness, he believed her and asked her to wait. Soon, a middle-aged man came running over excitedly. Meng Xian, have you finally come around? There was a hint of disgust in the depths of Meng Xian's eyes, but considering she needed a favor, she patiently asked, "Can we talk somewhere else?" Of course, follow me to my office." Manager Huang couldn't hide his joy and quickly led the way down a corridor. The office was not small, about 10 meters square, with a desk and many documents. A young woman in a black silk uniform was organizing files at the desk. "She's my secretary. Don't get the wrong idea." Manager Huang quickly explained and waved his secretary out. The secretary gave him a resentful look, then turned her attention to Meng Xian. Seeing the scar on Meng Xian's eye, she was taken aback. She didn't understand why Manager Huang was so concerned about such a wild woman. Meng Xian remained expressionless and chose to ignore it. "Hey, close the door." The secretary deliberately left the door open as she left, causing Manager Huang some dissatisfaction. Seeing that the secretary didn't come back to close it, he had to trot over and glare at the secretary outside before quickly closing the door. Turning back and looking at the figure he'd been dreaming of, he swallowed nervously and excitedly said, "Meng Xian, whatever you ask, just say it. Our wedding, we'll make it as big as you want. I'll make sure you shine. Also, about the residency, I can get it done for you by tomorrow. Plus, after we're married, I'll give you my salary card. Buy whatever you want." Manager Huang was fearing that Meng Xian might change her mind. "I came to you because I need a favor." Meng Xian turned around. This man had helped her a lot, but the age difference between them was too great, and most importantly, Manager Huang had once been her father's driver, which made it quite inappropriate. "HN." Manager Huang's expression becoming stiff and disappointed, but he quickly put on a willing-to-help smile and said, "Meng Xian, just say what you need. If it's within my power, I will definitely help you." In the post-apocalyptic world, some rejoiced while others despaired. He was one of the luckier ones. Before the apocalypse, a wealthy and beautiful woman like Meng Xian was out of his league. He didn't even dare to look at her directly. Meng Xian felt conflicted. "Manager Huang, our age difference is too great. It's not suitable. Not too big, not too big. You might think I look old, but I'm only 3 years older than you. A copy of my old ID card is still in your father's office." Manager Huang felt helpless. He had always looked older than his age, often mistaken for a bad uncle by his classmates when he was in elementary school, and even mistaken for a teacher when he first entered high school. Meng Xian was unsure whether he was lying. After a moment of thought, she said, "It's not about that. I think love should be about feeling a connection, and right now, one don't feel that way about you." Understood. I'll slowly change myself and eventually, I'll be worthy of you." Manager Huang chuckled and grinned foolishly for a while. Although his status and position had changed significantly now, and Meng Xian was no longer the wealthy and beautiful woman she used to be. In his heart, she always remained his unattainable love. Meng Xian didn't want to dwell on this topic and said, "I came to you because I need a favor."